Welcome back, everyone. I'm just going to give you a brief presentation on the life of St. John Paul II. As I mentioned earlier, that my life really changed as I read this biography of him, Witness to Hope. There are many different biographies you can read. And to the left is myself with George Weigel, the author of Witness to Hope, who I had a great joy of studying with, and he had lived in the seminary with us for all of one Lent when he wrote a book about the station churches in Rome in Lent. And then to the right is me with Cardinal Jeevish. He had been John Paul II's secretary for his pontificate from 1978 to 2005, and then afterwards became the Cardinal Archbishop of Krakow, which John Paul II had. And here is when I was newly ordained, and then he asked me to do my doctoral dissertation on John Paul II, and then demanded that my Archbishop sent me to do my doctorate for that. So I was very blessed. That's another story maybe for the after party later, but let's get into the real thing. So here is, as you heard earlier in the talk, the home of John Paul II, just to the right of the church. And so right there is where he was born, and the first thing that he heard, his mom had them open the windows as the bells were ringing for evening prayer and vespers with Mary, and so he heard these Marian hymns. The first things that he heard, and this was the parish church where he grew up. And there he is with his mother, Karol Joseph Wojtyła, born May 18th, 1920. And on June 20th, 1920, he was baptized there in the church. There's the baptismal font and him coming back and visiting it later as the Pope. These are his parents, who now their cause has been opened for becoming saints. And his mother died when he was 8 years old. And so his father took young Karol and his brother Edmund to this place not too far away called Kalwaria Zebrzydowska, this series of mountains and hills that resemble the Holy Land, and where there's a series of chapels of the Way of Jesus and the Way of Mary, where you can walk and pray. And then also they have this miraculous image there of Our Lady of Calvary, which I absolutely love, because rather than, you would think Our Lady of Calvary would be at the cross, but here she is with Jesus as an infant, but their faces pressed together in such tenderness, and then they're covered in this tree of life, but also little crosses. And so it's such a beautiful place. And it was there that his father said to him, "This is your mother now," not to replace his mother, but to recognize that Mary cares for all of us, and that she is our hope of the one who is assumed into heaven, and that we also will be able to join with her and all the angels and saints in heaven one day. And so this is here's me with some students there walking on the path there to visit all these different chapels. And then on Good Friday they do a living Stations of the Cross where they act this out. I went once for Good Friday in the middle of a snowstorm and in a blizzard. It was a very strange thing to see Jesus carrying the cross up the mountain in the middle of the snow, but it was really beautiful. His brother Edmund became a doctor, and then died when he was treating someone who had scarlet fever and who had to be quarantined and wasn't being cared for, and he felt that part of medicine needs to be truly caring for the patient, not just that. And so he ended up giving his life as a sacrifice for her. And so that's him on the left, and the young John Paul II on the right, who then kept his brother's stethoscope in his drawer for the rest of his life, remembering that gift of self and that call to give of himself for the suffering of others throughout his life. And when, as I mentioned before, as he turned 18, him and his father moved from Wadowice to Krakow to attend the Jagiellonian University, where he studied philology, the study of language and theater, and then got involved with the rhapsodic theater to try to keep Polish culture alive. And here in the heart of downtown Krakow, in the largest square in all of Europe, in the center of Krakow, and that's St. Mary's Church in the upper left the basilica there. And John Paul II lived just outside of the main city center. This is the Vistula River, and where you see that steeple is the church of St. Stanislaw Kostka, where he met Jan Turanowski, and he lived in that area. But his father died when he was 20, and so his father was buried along with his mother and his brother, and then also a younger sister who died just right after she was born, and in the cemetery there in Krakow, amidst some other saints of Polish history, and so you can go and visit it there. And so he said that at 20 years old, he was left all alone, without any family. But this is when, as I mentioned earlier, his vocation really blossomed as he entered into the underground seminary, but first as he was working at a rock quarry and a chemical factory, and you see the clothing that he wore and the wooden shoes that he would have to do as he was journeying to go over there to work in the quarry and the chemical factory. And here's a stained glass window in the church of him doing work at that time. Where he used to work in this chemical factory has now been transformed into the John Paul II Center and the shrine of St. John Paul II. So it's really quite amazing, just outside of the city center, and you can go and visit this great shrine to John Paul II. And right across from there is where another saint lives, Saint Faustina. She died in 1938. In 1938, Wojtyła moved to Krakow, and then in 1939, as his classes got shut down, he had to start going to the quarry and then to the chemical factory, and he would stop each day. Now there's this huge shrine to Divine Mercy, but he would stop in this chapel here where St. Faustina had been praying just a year before, and where Jesus had been appearing. And it's amazing to me to recognize the way that saints aren't formed in isolation, and like that, how important community is. So think about who your friends are. But thinking of this, that he saw this witness, that he was there hearing about this nun who was, and the message of Divine Mercy, even in this time of World War II. And here's inside, where you can see St. Faustina's tomb, and also the image of Divine Mercy. In 1946, on November 1st, he was ordained. Often ordinations are a big deal, but here it was very small, just in the Archbishop of Krakow's private residence. So it was here that he was ordained. And later, it would be in this room, in this chapel, where he would write his Theology of the Body in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And then he celebrated his first Masses on November 2nd, All Souls Day, in the crypt chapel of the Wawel Cathedral, which is there by the castle and the cathedral. And so this is the St. Leonard's crypt, and has some famous people in Polish history there, like Jan Sobieski and other military people. Here's myself celebrating Mass there. Then, as I mentioned, when he got back from Rome, so he went for Rome for 2 years, and then he came back and was in a parish church for a year. And there he is, ministering to families there. And then to St. Florian's in Krakow, where he started his college ministry, young adult ministry, and the first marriage preparation. And so inside the chapel there, or the church there. And so here he is with the Środowisko, with these young people, and really working to form community. And over at the Jagiellonian University again. And then as he got his second doctorate, then he was also teaching at the Catholic University of Lublin on the eastern side of Poland. And there I am at where he used to lecture from for packed lecture halls. So there. And I had my first opportunity. The whole reason I feel so blessed with Poland was that in 2009, I was supposed to go to Mexico to study Spanish, but because of swine flu, my bishop sent me to Poland instead. And that was my first time in Poland. Now I've been there over 20 times and going back again and again and again. So it's been a real, through divine providence, that keeps sending me back there. And here he is in the mountains, forming with the Środowisko and the young adults. And this is with a married couple. They're on the path for being canonized as well, that he formed them to be saints in their marriage. And so I think that's beautiful, a saint forming saints. And here he is hiking and camping with them. And then there's me, hiking and camping with the young people there. Just walking those same mountains and the same paths that he did in the south of Poland, in the Tatra Mountains on the border of Slovakia. And then here he is praying his Liturgy of the Hours, the Breviary, in his kayak. He also won a kayak race on this river, and then his kayak sank, and he was able to get out without his Breviary getting wet. And here's myself on that same river, and here I am. I say, this is my New Jersey personality, like cutting someone off in traffic. Used to the traffic like that here too. And of course, Mary is so important. And there's actually several images of Mary in different regions of Poland that have a lot of devotion, but the most famous is Our Lady of Częstochowa, and who is truly the Queen of Poland, and that he really entrusted so much of his prayers to, in this really miraculous image where you can really feel the heartbeat of Poland there. And in between Częstochowa and Poland is Auschwitz, as you heard before, a place of great sadness, but where John Paul II called this the Golgotha of the modern world. And I think this is important because when you go there, there's a plaque in just about every language that says, like, may an eternal cry of despair echo from here. And I understand that sentiment, but it's not Catholic theology. There's not eternal despair that comes, but there's always the possibility of redemption. And that's why when John Paul II went there in 1979, in his first pilgrimage, returning to Poland as Pope, he said, let us pray for divine mercy, and like really praying for that, the possibility of redemption and forgiveness and healing that could take place there. But a very important place to go and to be able to remember this. And this is something where I went once and thought this was really important, but I'll never go back again. But now, like 10 times or so, especially on Good Friday and Holy Thursday. And I think this is where it all started for me with my dissertation I went on Holy Thursday one year as a seminarian, and then I was serving at the Holy Thursday Mass in Krakow, and during adoration, I'm kneeling next to Cardinal Dziwisz, John Paul II's secretary, holding the incense but crying just from this emotional day, thinking about what are they praying for now, because he's seen his prayers be answered of the freedom from the Nazis, freedom from the Soviet occupation of Poland, John Paul II being Pope, all these miracles and all these great things. So like, what are people praying for now? If you knew that prayers truly could be answered in ways beyond your expectations. And so I think that's an important thing to remember. He was made a bishop in 1958 while he was on a kayaking trip. He was notified about this, and he said, thank you, can I go back with my friends and finish the trip? They're expecting Mass. And then in 1960, Love and Responsibility in the jeweler shop. And then 62 to 65, he participated in the Second Vatican Council. And then in 1964, became Archbishop of Krakow. And in 1967, a cardinal. And so as this time, he was bringing marriage prep throughout the diocese until 1978, October 16th. He's elected the first non-Italian pope in over 400 years, and the first Slavic pope. And so it's, do not be afraid, open wide the doors to Christ. And so he truly embodied this by being the most widely traveled pope in history, going to 129 countries, and giving so many speeches and really trying to bring the incarnation of Christ to all people, showing God's love is for everybody, that Catholic means in the whole, and that and no one is excluded from God's love and mercy. And so you see all these places that he went to, and the great crowds wherever he went. He's like the most widely seen human being in all of history. And there's too much to explain on everything that he did in his pontificate now. But saying here on April 2nd, 2005, on the Vigil of Divine Mercy, on First Saturday, so he died in the arms of Jesus in the Divine Mercy, and in the arms of Mary in her Immaculate Heart. So my brother went to the funeral, and here is me later as a seminarian with Blessed John Paul II at his tomb, and then proclaiming the gospel there as a deacon, and then I was there for his canonization as he's declared a saint. And you'll see there's Pope Francis and me just to the left, right behind him, as a deacon about a month before I was ordained a priest, holding the Eucharist there. So feeling really special, really honored to be at his beatification and then canonization. And and then that's it. And so just showing briefly this experience of his life, and then just sharing with you what a great joy it was just reading about him, and can really change your life, and reading his writings, but going and seeing for yourself and walking in his footsteps really makes it alive. And especially Poland is just filled with so many great saints. Even today is the 40th anniversary of the martyrdom of Blessed Jerzy Popiełuszko, who was in Warsaw, and was in the 1980s was killed by the Soviet police for preaching peace. And it seems like, and that becomes the reaction to that of violence, but to see that witness of a diocesan priest with a great devotion to Mary, but being able to not be afraid to speak the truth. And so, and here I just encourage that I've been very blessed that, as I said, having opportunities to go again and again to Poland. And then especially after I was ordained 10 years ago, I went back to Poland for 2016 for World Youth Day, and then every year after that, I've been basically tricked into giving pilgrimages for teenagers and then young adults, and it's something that I joyfully do each summer. So if it's a possibility for you to join me and others from this group, we welcome you to join us for this pilgrimage next year. Thank you.